And I don't know, okay, better get feedback. I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of Matt. And before we get started, I want to encourage, strongly encourage everybody to make sure that their phones are silent. One time I did that, and as soon as I told everybody that, my phone rang. Anyway, there we go. Okay, to get started, let's introduce members of the MAC, and I will start. We'll go to my right. I'm Charles Johnson, member at large.
Priscilla Vargas, staff liaison to the MAC and ADA compliance officer.
Okay, and just the MAC members now. Helen.
Helen O'Connell, Chair of TCP Committee.
Okay, Jean.
Gene Lozano, Chair of the Access and Infrastructure Subcommittee, standing committee.
Jeff Tom, Vice Chair and Representative from the American Council of Blind.
Pam Floor, member at large representing seniors.
German Aon representing Area Agency on Aging, Area 4.
There's a little button right in front.
Okay. I'm Margie Donovan, member at large.
Okay. MAC members on the Zoom call.
Isabel Ariola.
And you are Isabella, you're representing
Resources for Independent Living.
and Pat. Okay, and Priscilla, if you would continue with staff and member and yes.
I'm not sure if everybody has a mic. I have Richard Mitchell, he's director of CBS, Community Bus Services. Okay, we're getting a mic. Thank you.
Carmen Alva, VP of Bus Operations. Lisa Hines, VP of Security, Safety, and Customer Satisfaction. Adam Green, Senior Administrative Assistant.
Jamie Kilcannon, Director of Satisfaction.
Anthony Adams, Director of Planning and Grants.
Jamie Adelman, VP of Procurement, Real Estate, and Special Projects.
I'm Sean Reynolds, the program analyst for SAC-RT-GO.
Rose Patton, Accessible Services.
Leonard Services.
Do we have any staff on Zoom? If so, please introduce yourselves. Oh, you. Okay, there we go. You left. Okay. Any staff members on Zoom? I can't actually read the right. Kathy Station. Kevin Schroeder. Okay. Now, members of the public. Okay. Jeff Tartagia, I happen to know who you are.
Dan Allison, I'm with Sacramento Transit Advocates and Writers.
Lisa Capillari with Paratransit Inc.
Oh, thanks, Lisa.
And this is Thomas Dempsey. I'm actually with Sacramento Regional Transit District, Senior Procurement Analyst.
Okay, I think we've got everybody. Thanks. And let's move on with the approval of the August minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as submitted?
I move that we accept the minutes of August 3rd as presented.
Margie seconds.
Thank you, Margie. Okay, all MAC members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstention. Okay, the August minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to public comment. Now these are comments from members of the public for items not on the agenda? Any comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Dan Allison. I'm with Sacramento Transit Advocates and Riders, which is one of the transit advocacy organizations in Sacramento area. And we are participating in something called Week Without Driving. It's a program that was started by Disability Rights Washington, and is of arts, if any of you know her. And it's now a national program co-sponsored with America Walks. And in general, the intent of the program is to get people who normally drive to not drive, to go someplace they normally go, but without driving. And it's not a week with no driving, it's a experience something different. And we are emphasizing transit and people with disabilities. It's not limited to that, but that's what we're focused on because that's what we think make the biggest difference. Our partnership is 3 unstaffed, very small organizations, so we don't have a big capacity, but we're doing what we can. And Barbara Stanton suggested that I come here and introduce the idea. I have a few flyers which I can pass around for those of you who can see them, and I will stay around after the meeting if any of you have questions for me. But I won't take up any more of the time.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your coming here and sharing that with us. And if you have those flyers, if anybody's interested. Okay, great. Jeff Tardigia.
Jeff Tardigia. I'm glad what's going on with the I-80. To my knowledge, I have not heard yet that the signage is up at the elevator to assist riders in where they need to go and understand when the elevators are out and what services are there. I'm going to draw to your attention now that the fact on Broadway Boulevard, there is, should we say, dealing with the ordinance of 40 inches. It is having issues. In my understanding this week, there is what we call sweeps, but code enforcement going on. The reason I bring it up is because I happen to be the point in time count. And so wanting to find out where people are getting moved to when this activity takes place. Also, lastly, I will offer to you is you can get a hold of the copy of the grid. You'll see a number of articles related to Sacramento and homeless. Interesting read to look through and see. And that's my public comment for the MAC today.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Appreciate it. Any other comment from members of the public in the room here? Okay, anybody on the Zoom have members of the public have a comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to chair report. And I have 2 items. One is just to remind people that recruitment is still going on. So if you know of anyone who is interested in being a member of the MAC, please let us know and let them know that recruitment is ongoing. The second item is to announce that the RT Board of Directors approved the changes to the MAC bylaws that we voted on at the last meeting. So our suggested changes have been approved by the Board of Directors. So those are now boards, and I'm going to ask Priscilla to send out an updated version of the minutes to all MAC. I'm sorry, bylaws to all.
I think I did that already.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Been missing several emails recently. Okay, moving on to old business, website administration and support update. And I think that will be done by Beneath. Correct. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
Hi, I'm Thomas Dempsey, and I'm the senior procurement analyst and had oversight of this procurement now. Just a kind of a little update. We have a contract that'll be coming out of this, be over $150,000, so it's going to require a board award, so if you Sacramento Board of Directors. It went out for solicitation on February 2nd, 2023, and bids were due April 7th, 2023. We did get over 46 prospective bidders, so we had talked to mostly form letter and email notification, but we had communication with them.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, is that a little bit better? Sorry. I always sound okay to myself. Just to kind of hit those high notes again, then we expected it to require a board of directors award from the Sacramento Regional Transit Board. It went out for bid on February 2nd, 2023, and the bids were due April 7th, 2023. We had 46 prospective bidders, so we had contacted them with email, electronic notification through our online bidding portal called Planet Bids, which has over 10,000 vendors, I believe, that are available on there. We got ultimately 10 proposals in. This is a best value determination. So our evaluation committee went through and carefully considered what each vendor brought. And when it's best value, it's not solely determined, of course, by price, but price is a factor. And ultimately, we made an award that went out today. I wanted to just kind of note that once we engage in our competitive bidding process, it is a confidential process by regulation. So now that we've made a determination, or excuse me, a recommendation for award, we issued a notice of potential award to a company called Exemplify LLC. And that kicks off a 10-day period that will then end with the board either approving or rejecting the proposal.
Wonderful. It's good to hear that this thing is actually moving forward.
Yes.
So, okay. Are there any questions from members of the board? Margie?
Thank you. Could you please address this company's history with developing accessibility websites with accessibility for blind and visually impaired and all disabilities really, and have in the process, were any of their websites evaluated for accessibility?
Okay, well, that's a good question, and I don't have their proposal in front of me, so I'll speak to what I'm fairly certain I remember. But they did have, I believe, I think it was over 20 years of experience with websites and accessibility. And of course, accessibility is a major component of this, but not the only component. In general, we're looking for someone, of course, to provide administrative support of our website broadly, but of course, accessibility is very, very important to us. And so they had listed many public agencies that they had worked for and provided website administration and support and accessibility to. I don't remember if they had cited a review, but they did cite that they are familiar with things like 508 and that kind of stuff. So they had a depth of experience, but I couldn't speak to some of the specifics about maybe who had these websites. Does that answer your question? I suppose.
Sort of. My overall concern is a lot of web developers come in and say, oh yeah, we've got experience. And then as we work with them, we find out that their experience is very limited. It'd be really cool to, if you can at some point, share with the MAC maybe some websites they've worked on so we can look at it for accessibility. I think, we've been back and forth on this for years now, and we've hired, I believe, at least 2 companies that claimed familiarity with accessibility, but when it actually came down to it, their experience was very limited.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. We can now, with this process ending, we can go back and share what they shared, and we can reach out to them if there's any specific questions surrounding that that's not answered in the proposal. And make sure we get a robust answer.
Thank you.
Gene?
I guess I have 2 requests. One would be, when we provided a copy of this RFP? I'm seeing it's an RFP, read an RFQ.
Yeah, well, we called it a request for quote, but
Okay,
it's
and
evaluated like an RFP. So
Okay.
it's the same thing. It's
Okay. That would be, thank you for the clarification. We received presentations during these meetings, giving us an idea of what might be in there, but we've never actually seen the RFQ. It would be helpful for us to have that. And also, I believe the proposal, after it's approved by the board, be a public document, then we'd like to see that proposal too, so we know what they have committed to. One of the things we want to find out is that they are not using this software that will do a search and pull some things, say, oh, this is inaccessible and correct it, but actually know how to do that on their own without using the software. In reality, they have somebody certified in the use of screen reading software that is available, and that there's beta testing being done by people with cross disabilities, particularly those with that are blind and low vision, so that before it goes out or make any changes, you've got some people that are qualified and they should be the full spectrum of usability. People, regardless of their skill level, but it's not only accessible but usable. So some of those are the concerns that we've had over the various previous contracts, and so hopefully we can get the RFQ proposal and have a better understanding. And I think it will address a lot of our concerns, like no longer being in existence, those issues.
Yeah.
Can we do that, please?
No, I appreciate your question, and I believe that we can accommodate that. We do have outlined that there would be what we refer to as user acceptance testing, of course, of the product before it goes live. And we have on our team, of course, internally at SAC, our team, program people like Priscilla, of course, IT people like that.
But we need people that are actual users, that are familiar with people with disability, that are using the software, whether it's on their smartphone or whether it's on the computer, and end users that are dealing with it, that also have the technical.
No, I think I understand what you're saying, and it makes a certain amount of logical sense, obviously, and I believe it is something that we could probably accommodate and discuss on how to do that. What I'm trying to say right now is it's not completely outlined how that user acceptance testing would be. There's a design phase where those kinds of things would be identified, and so we can absolutely bring that forward as something that we can, work to accommodate. Because right, you're looking for an actual visual impaired or blind user to go through and assure that it works for them and whatever assistive technology or screen reader or whatever have you that they have. So, it's logical. I just, so there'll be a definition phase where we work that out and we can have an eye towards that.
Okay,
Thank you.
just a minute. Okay, Jeff Top.
Yeah, so, and just as a caveat, you have to remember that the reason that all these questions are coming up is, as Margie and Jean have both mentioned, we have had serious issues with the last major overhaul of the website that turned out to be essentially worthless from an accessibility standpoint, and created the need to do it all over again. So you can see why there's a concern on the committee. My question for you, what date will this be going to the board?
I believe that date is September 25th.
Okay, thank you.
So we will be hearing back from Ben regarding the theme that Martin issued.
Yes.
Okay, can you give us a time, right?
I'll just need to double check about the proposal, but it should actually I don't think it should be an issue, but I just want to double check. I think I could release that after this meeting. Because we're going to be putting it out for our review, so obviously it'll go to them in the document. That's also for public review, so I believe that would work. I'll double check with this, but if that's the case, I'm pretty sure I could get everything out to you guys by via email.
Great, including the RFQ.
Okay. Good work through, with Priscilla to get that out.
And I would ask though, if there's any, if you could notify me of any accessibility preferences, I currently have it in like an Excel document, or excuse me, Excel spreadsheet and a PDF document, some of the things. Word is also available. So if there's any preferences.
Word in PDF.
Excel
version of my forte.
No, we can do
Yeah,
that.
I think some people have trouble with, Excel.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Any other, questions from MAC members present here in person? Okay, any MAC member on, the, Zoom call have a question? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And this obviously can tell this is something we have great interest in.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate it.
We'll be in touch, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on. The next item is Sacramento Supplemental Services Magnetic Signage Update with Richard Mitchell. Good afternoon, Richard.
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson and MAC members. So this issue has been ongoing for almost, I would say, well, not almost, but the entire time I've been here, which is now over 5 months. So one of the things that we initiated was to work with user to request what the signage looks like on their other vehicles that they operate in other states and other services. Look at also what other similar services are doing. And we found that the most common one is to go with what Uber and Lyft having a signage for the supplemental paratransit service in the front windshield on the right-hand side. So we developed that based upon the sizes that we were given by user that they have in other places. Also had them double check with, vehicle code and all that, whether it's okay to be on the windshield. And then I've been testing out on various vehicle, Sacramento vehicles and have had them up for, about a month and a half. And so they are window decals, so they're not stickers, so they are removable and then they can put them back up. And up the photograph that's up on the screen right now is where approximately it will be positioned. So it will be the SAC Artico. It has a white background. You can see it from very, very far distance. I know that, our visually impaired passengers won't be able to see it, but if they have a PCA or any type of assistance, we'll still be able to really pop out. So instead of having a transparent background with the white, it has the SAC Artico logo that is the blue, the yellow, the magenta. It says Sacramento Paratransit, clearly identifying it on the vehicle. And I have a one that I can bounce around that's on a laminate. So I'll just start it right here at the end. Yeah, exactly, Helen. I mean, it is a good size and we're pretty confident that this will help because some of the feedback we were getting from their drivers as we've been pushing this issue. One, we have confirmed they do fall off just driving down the freeway. They're scratching their clear coat, their paint jobs on the vehicles. So there's some reluctance to do that. And since I've been here, we've sent out over, I think it's 400 magnets to user, and we were still encountering the same issue. So besides that, the other process that I worked with user to put in place is kind of like, how are we going to make sure that these are on there, that they're being checked, that there's some type of consequence if it's not, So first I'll just kind of do like a timeline of where we're at. So they received the shipment of 500 of these decals on August 30th. On September 1st, they shipped them out to all of their current drivers. And then on September 5th, they sent out an email basically giving direction saying this is coming out, this is going to be the new expectation, this is going to be, you know, where you have to position it. So there's kind of like a little bit of a diagram for them. And then for all new existing drivers that they're onboarding, this will be in their welcome kits as this is the standard that we're going with. So one of the other things that we had them add, because I know that even some of the members of the MAC have experienced where it's not even on the vehicle, the magnet wasn't, but then the driver's like, oh no, it is. So what we want to have is some way of documenting that before they started service that day for us, whether it was one trips or multiple, that they somehow documented to user that they checked that the decal was in the front windshield. So on their driver pre-inspection app, one of the changes, so that's where they already exist currently doing, where they check for like my headlights, my windshield's not cracked, my turn signals were, you know, the vehicle's clean, it's not damaged, you know, it's in good working, safe condition. They added that, and this is how the verbiage is, that they're checking off that the SAC RT Go decal properly displayed in front windshield. And then also as a secondary one is that the user trade dress properly displayed. And that's user's internal way of saying their decal. So that's going to be on that. And if they do not check those off, they're unable to proceed to receive any trips and they cannot go into service that day. Okay, so now what happens after that? We also put it in a place that if it's kind of like a progressive step for them not being the drivers, not providing service for us, if we have a certain number of these documented that they did not have this displayed while they were in service. So that's the process that we have gone through, and the time period, by the timeline that user is having is that they're hoping by this Friday that everybody, all their drivers will have received it and that they're able to proceed forward, that as of Monday, the 11th of September, and that's a tentative date by them, that they'll have this in place. We won't see the magnets anymore. We will see the decals on the front windshield, and the drivers are going through a pre-trip inspection, verifying that they have confirmed that it's there. So if we then end up with photograph evidence or visual evidence that we're able to then proceed like through documenting it, there's consequences that will occur with that driver going forward.
Hey, thanks, Richard. Gene.
Richard, I hope this works. Got to give it a try. But as I had a few weeks ago, and I did file a complaint, and the driver admitted to it. The driver, we asked about the magnetic sign, and he had a pile of paper on his in the seat, and at the bottom of it was the magnet thing. And he handed it to me, and I put it on his door. And it took, I'm not weak, but I'm not the strongest person in the world. But it took effort to pull it off. So I don't know exactly how the wind is knocking these off. And I know, so you're not going to be doing it anyway, so that's dead. But there's just, but the thing is, the driver told me the reason I don't have it there is that I also work for Lyft and Uber. And so I have and I removed the magnetic thing so that when I was driving for Lyft and Uber, individual companies, I just had theirs on there and I just forgot to put it there. And you have many drivers that are driving for more than just user. So I'm saying is, you may still have the thing that they check it off there, and then they go out there in the road, and they don't have any rides that have been given to them, so they have Lyft or Uber, and they take out the, use your sign, and then put it, or decal, and then putting the other one in there, and then they forget to put it there. I'm not confident to happen. I feel you're still gonna need to go out for a proposal, get the funding for a mystery rider program exclusively for SACRT to use a service. So that you have riders that may be that have been trained, or actually the company that has individuals with disabilities that come in that would be eligible to ride there, and then reporting back. Beside you folks, finding somebody to do randomly, finding out where these vehicles are, like midday or whatever it is, to see if they're still there. And I don't mean every single vehicle, but randomly choosing some over a period of time, just to see if they're staying there after they've checked it off and they pulled out. So that, and I guess this, just the one thing, communications coming from to their drivers keeps on being reinforced that it's very poor. And an example is today, the Save the Air free rides, including music. I had a driver here that brought me here, and she said that she was not told by the company it was her first rider that told her about it, and every other, and she's gotten it confirmed. And she happened, and I believe she talked to another driver who didn't know about it either. It was not conveyed to them. And so they have not made any issues about it. I'm just saying is the word. I am, I have to believe that to you and others here at RT, that was conveyed to user, but they did not convey that to their drivers. So that's a slightly different issue, but it's the whole issue of communications, and I'll stop. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Gene. Pam.
I don't know, I think there's no perfect solution, and it's going to take, time for people to get used to the situation, but I think it's a good start. However, on this, decal that you've got, the yellow, yeah, German, can you see the yellow part clearly?
That was something I was going to say too. The color is when with the sunlight you won't be able to see.
Right,
But
if it were a
red.
bit more, if you ever redo this, if it were a bit more orange or gold, perhaps it would be better. However, it is redundant enough that people can see the SAC and the GO, and it does say paratransit services, so it's not, unusable. But how about you, Charles? Can you see the yellow?
Absolutely not.
So there's little or no contrast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or if it were outlined in black.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
And can if you pass the decal over to us so Jeff and I can see it too?
I'm sorry.
But after you finish with it,
Once
we
the
can see it.
decal you look at, or have it there.
Yeah, both of us.
It's on a large sheet it's a laminate sheet, so it isn't as large as the sheet that guys are.
It's a good size, and it's the sort of thing people have come accustomed to seeing on other, user vehicles.
Won't it flop over a little bit?
No, it won't. We laminated it so it would stay in there, because otherwise it is a window decal. So it has a tendency of rolling up like a Tootsie Roll if it's. And it is able to be removed, but it's also designed the same way as the Lyft and Uber, so that it can stay on the windshield the whole time. And that's kind of what we're hoping to a certain extent happens, so that we don't get into this, oh, well, I took it down because I didn't have any passengers. So that, be there. Plus the fact that we've introduced a progressive check where basically it's like a 3 strike and you're out, and then you're not driving for the platform anymore for us. So we're hoping that like the deterrent of, oh, it scratches my paint job, to the fact of now we have a decal, so this won't scratch it. So it's easier to have on your vehicle. And if you don't have it, there's consequences now. And so we didn't have those in the past. So we're hoping that the whole package deal will minimize this. I don't believe anything that we put in place anywhere eliminates everything 100%. But if we can start making significant improvements and reduce the issues that we're having out there, because this does become a safety issue, because we need to make sure that the drivers and the vehicles are identified so that when people get on them, our passengers, they know that this is a SAC-RT vehicle for them.
Please follow, when you get new ones, when you run out of these and you're starting to issue new ones, please follow Pam's suggestion
Yeah.
of outlining the yellow with the black, so there is a contrast, and it's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, I agree, and I did take notes on that, and we will do that on the next print run.
Margie, do you have your hand up?
I do.
Go ahead.
First of all, Richard, I want to really acknowledge all the time and effort and work you've put into this. It has had to be frustrating. For the benefit of the MAC, I want to say, and RT knows this because I wrote it up. I experienced a driver last week or earlier this week, and he did not have a magnet on the car. He handed it to me. I tried to stick it on. It would not stick. It fell to the ground. I picked it up. I tried to stick it on. It had no magnetic ability to it. So I think the production of this varies. That is the only time I've ever tried to stick one on a vehicle, but I think some of what the drivers are saying is absolutely accurate. So this is a good compromise. Now, speaking of safety, I'm very concerned because when I walk up to the vehicle, most of the time, the driver doesn't even have my name. And so I'd reach to feel for the magnet. And if the magnet wasn't on the car, I would ask them to show me the magnet. And as a totally blind woman who lives by myself, who uses U-Serve frequently by myself, I don't know how I'm going to identify this vehicle. It would be really nice if the drivers would say, are you Margie? I use Lyft too, and I use Lyft today. And I know the name of the driver and the driver knows my name. I always ask the driver, even the user driver, who are you here to pick up? They just assume because I'm walking out or I'm standing out that I'm their passenger. And will I be able to ask them to put this sign in my hand? I mean, that's a little more reassurance, but it'd be really nice if they would ask for us by name and not make an assumption that we're the one, because I really, when I use Lyft, I look at the app, I look at the car, I ask them what kind of car, what their name is to verify that I'm getting in the right vehicle. I can see from my perspective as a woman who lives by myself, if someone was patterning my habits, or somebody can pull up and say they're user. So that's my concern, but I really want to go back and acknowledge the work you've done on this.
Thank you, Margie. To address the issue of can they give you the signage? No, they won't be able to. But then to address your other concern, so the magnet was one of my projects, that other issue of them identifying themselves and also verbalizing who they're there for. Not, hey, somebody, I'm user, here, I'm here to pick somebody up. They should know, and they do. And I've been working on this. Also, we're not quite to a conclusion of it, but I have verified what shows up on the app, that when it comes out, your name, your address, that driver is clearly aware and has been informed through that app who they're there to pick up. Now we need them to do their job, which they are contracted to do on what we specify that they should be doing when they show up at either the pickup destination or the drop-off destination, where, your home, or picking you back up from where you went to go back home, so that they know who they have on their vehicle. And this is a huge area for improvement. It is not perfect in any way, but it is now, now as this magnet issue. We're kind of like, we have addressed it. We have something in place. We'll still manage it and we'll still monitor it. But our number one focus is that issue too, the door-to-door service and the drivers identifying themselves. And that's been on the agenda with user on our weekly calls as long as the magnet issue has been. So we need this to be addressed. We need this to be corrected. And it is a huge safety concern. And I know that my vice president, Carmen Alba, it is as important to her as it is to us, as it is to any of our passengers that are out there.
Thank you.
It's getting traction.
Can I just make a clarification? I think Margie, you were referring to your USERV trips today, correct?
No, I was actually, I've had Lyft and user today.
Okay, so you had USERV.
Yeah, I had user here. I had Lyft a PT.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because it's in El Dorado County.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members present here? Okay, looking at the Zoom call, I think, let's see, is it Isabella that has her hand up?
Yes. Thank you. I honestly don't have a better way to say this other than in all my life of being an autonomous, self-reliant adult, I have never welcomed the solution of, well, just have your sighted caretaker be the solution, because I'd like to know where I can find a caretaker that is going to wait on me and meet all my needs 24/7, 365 days a year. Because that would be the only way that I would accept having a sighted person verify something for me in my adult life. So I'm appreciative that these are being identified, but I'm also very tired of just have someone who can see do it for you. So I'm going to request that that just be not where anybody goes. I work at Resources for Independent Living. Our sole mission is to increase the autonomy and self-reliance of individuals with disabilities. And I will never, ever tell them, oh, well, you can't fill out a form. Please go have somebody who can fill it out for you. Do so, right? We find alternative solutions. I have been in taxis where a plastic placard is mounted to the back seat in front of me, and it does have raised print as well as Braille identifying the driver by a numerical series. I think that is something that can be utilized in this instance. Compliance it can't be just a policy. It also needs to be a culture. It also needs to have the accompanying attitudes from not just from RTGo or other entities, but the people doing the driving. It cannot just be a paycheck. And I think Lyft and Uber have set a pretty good example. They also have their shortcomings, but they've set a pretty good example. And I think any driver who is now a share ride or a taxi, they need to know that that's the standard. I think that part of, the consequence of, okay, you don't get paid for the day. I think there needs to be additional consequence. If it happens twice, then that's it. Because I know for Uber, if there's an accessibility issue more than once, if there's an accessibility issue twice, then their rights to drive for that company are terminated. So it needs to be a serious issue. I know for me personally, having someone who understands my requests is very important. Getting dropped off somewhere because someone doesn't understand what I'm requesting or the specific information that I'm wanting to give the person, that has become a safety issue for me as well. So I think that as much as we are not a big percentage of the population, those of us who are grown adults with visual impairments, our reliance on transportation is extremely high. We do not have the choice to drive. We can purchase a car, we can do all sorts of things, but we will never be able to legally get on the road and go anywhere. So transportation becomes the number one way that we become autonomous, self-reliant adults. So I'm asking very politely, please think of those aspects before you use something like have your caretaker identify the car for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Anything you want to apply there?
I apologize for it coming across the way that it did. It was more of, if you do have a caretaker, they would be able to see it. But we need to address the issue as the drivers that are coming to pick up are addressing who they're there for, so that the visually impaired passengers that we have are able to have that sense of security, that the vehicle that's there for them is the correct vehicle. And we definitely be looking at additional ways to be able to, identify the vehicles, no matter what type of passengers that we're transporting.
Thank you.
Richard, I can at least tell you that I really feel that you've been effective in starting the change in the culture. I have drivers who identify themselves and usually, call out my name. The challenge is sometimes understanding them, but that's aside. But I think, and you've heard this, is that we're still hoping that in addition to, or at least I am, in addition to the person identifying themselves and seeing that I'm the person, that if we need confirmation that we're something outside of the vehicle before we enter the vehicle, that would let us know this is the actual vehicle. I think the first step, what you're doing, I think that needs to be fully accomplished and enforced. But I think is looking at, there's some way, and you tried it with the magnet, but if there's something else that might be done so that you can confirm everything before you get into the vehicle and to get your confirmation. And I know having trust, but it's still, you get concerned just still without that. There's the way our culture, our whole society is changing. It's sometimes a little trustful. There's a little concerns about trust when it comes to total strangers, unless you have it. So, but thank you for what you have started.
Well, Hugh, I understand that you want to say something via the chat function. I understand that's up now. Working. A message up to you. If you are responding, it's not showing up here on our end. You guys from IT have any suggestions or comments? Okay, it doesn't seem to be coming through chat. Hang on, we're trying to get this worked out.
Yeah, they just.
Yeah, and oh, Priscilla? It's possible for him, you, Facebook. Okay, no,
I think something should have.
oh, we got it? Okay. I cannot read that. Okay,
Thank you, Hugh. We do see your text. Thank you. What does it say?
uh.
Oh.
Yeah. So it should work now, Hugh. Nothing is coming through right now, Hugh. Okay, Priscilla, Priscilla is going to send you an email, and if we're able to get your comments or questions, we'll come back to those. And a little bit later on in the meeting. And so for now, I would like to move on. Richard, you want to finish your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Jean?
I'm sorry. Out of curiosity, if you do have a passenger who is deaf or hard of hearing, how that information will be conveyed when the driver, because you do have some people too that are also have dual diagnosis, visual impairment too. So how will you be able to, that passenger, be able to get the communications of who it is, that they are that company? They may or may not see that decal, but identifying who the driver is and them saying, are you Gene Lasana, something like that. How will that communications occur with somebody that is deaf or hard of hearing?
Well, through the eligibility process, when we first bring the passenger becomes eligible for the service, there's an evaluation process that Priscilla and her team do.
Right.
And they will identify whether or not that person is eligible to be on user or not on user. So not everybody that comes through automatically becomes eligible, because if they need extra assistance, if they're not as independent as others, we will keep them on go.
The point is, we do have people that have both visual and loss of hearing that are out there that would be eligible. It might be a safety issue from an access perspective that might be eligible. So if you have somebody who is ambulatory and is riding it, how will, whether it's one or two people, how will that information be conveyed to them? Will the driver provide it to them in writing saying, I am so and so, or you so and so?
Yeah. But if they're visually impaired and unable to
And hearing?
the likelihood of them being able to utilize the user system is very, very slim, because we'll keep them on go, where we then can provide the additional service and the identification. Like our vehicles are showing up. And so we're able to control like what vehicle is showing up, so they'll be able to recognize that, or our drivers, we're able to control our drivers directly And our drivers, we feel, do an excellent job at identifying themselves and going to the door. So we will keep that person on the go vehicle system and not to user, because we're limited of how many of like our entire passenger base that are eligible for our ADA service, of how many go to user because of specific issues. And it's a reasonable combination that we would make for them to keep them on go. Because of the fact we don't want to get into that situation, the safety issue that there's, you know, if the driver just doesn't quite do their job as they're supposed to, or, you know, they won't realize, the passenger won't realize whether that's the vehicle for them.
Well, I think we need, this is not going to be the day. I think we need to have some discussion, because just because of communications things where it may be simply where the driver is required to put it in writing and handing it to the person, that should not be a barrier for somebody to be eligible for. It sounds like almost like they're being penalized if they have dual disabilities. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just gonna respond because, what we do in the Accessible Services Department is we go through an interview and an assessment process with an applicant. And what we do is not determine whether they are eligible for youth serve or not. What we do is we indicate what kind of vehicle is most appropriate for the rider by indicating whether they can just ride in the accessible van, or if they would also be able to do a passenger car. So it really, we're not factoring in with respect to any other elements of someone's disability at this point. We look at whether or not they would be able to actually travel in the vehicle versus the go paratransit vehicle. And that has a lot to do with the fact that the vehicle isn't necessarily accessible. So we're moving toward enhancing that option. But right now, that's not where we're at. So it has everything to do really with the vehicle.
Let's see. Margie, a quick question or comment.
A quick comment is, we have to keep in mind, all of us on the MAC, that we get paratransit services. We don't get to determine whether it's a bus or whether it's a user. We get services, and our team has the rights to determine who goes where based on needs and other factors. I know some of our community, and I'm speaking of the blind community, thinks it's a right to get user. It is not a right. It's a right to be provided door-to-door transit.
Okay, thank you.
Margie, I'm only asking about communications, that's all. Here.
All right, this issue is, I think, a serious issue, and it should probably be dealt with more depth in a different forum than we have today. I think it's extremely good that it's been raised, and it might be best handled in probably the TCNP subcommittee. And we can have a much more in-depth discussion of these. I think a lot of really good issues have been raised by Margie and Isabella and Jean, and so these need to be investigated some more.
Can I just interject that one thing that we do is that passenger does know the bus, number, and they know the person in the driver. So that there is that, and that should be certainly emphasized with everybody here.
And so it becomes a matter of communication between the passenger and the driver of the bus when they show up. Okay, were we able to make contact with Hugh? I guess not.
Yeah, I told him, I sent him an email, so they'll communicate.
Yeah, so Hugh, if you want to respond, please respond to Priscilla in an email, and we need to move on now. So Richard, many thanks. Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, I do have one quick question. That sticker that goes on the windshield, is that a single use thing? And so when they pull it off, at some point they have to use a fresh one to put it back up?
No, it's multiple use, and so far I've done it, removing it and putting it back on at least 20 times.
Oh.
And I've even gotten it where I drop it on the ground and wash it off under the water and then reapply it.
Oh, okay.
I put it through its test.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, the next item under new business is a Sacramento Mystery Writer Program with Lisa Hines.
Waiting for them to load up PowerPoint for me. So I'll do my best to explain what's on the screen here. First, I'd like to introduce myself again. I'm Lisa Hines, the VP of Security, Safety, and Customer Satisfaction. And Chair Johnson and members of the board, I'd like to take this opportunity to share a presentation I shared with at the most recent Sacramento board meeting about the Mystery Writer Program. And on the screen, I have Mystery Writer Program, Secret Shopper, and a picture of a Sacramento bus. So today I would like to present SACRT's Mystery Writer Program. We are lucky at SACRT to have outstanding operators and employees, many of which receive commendations. This program helps highlight those employees. The Mystery Writer Program evaluates the strengths and weaknesses associated with the delivery of public transit services and identifies areas in need of improvement. It also aids SACRT staff in identifying problems and opportunities for service improvement. SACRT has had a Mystery Writer Program or similar monitoring initiative throughout our history. Although we did have to pause the program during the pandemic, our contract for monitoring did expire last year. My team and I are currently working with SACRT Procurement to secure a new contractor to bring back the Mystery Writer Program. The goal of the program is to ensure that SACRT is delivering safe, courteous, and reliable service to all customers, especially those individuals with disabilities, and ensure a high level of customer satisfaction, which is one of our strategic pillars. We plan to expand the program for fixed route and light rail to on-demand response, paratransit, and microtransit in the future. The Mystery Writer will be an experienced transit writer who will ride all SACRT bus and light rail service and who may conduct up to 25 to 50 rides per month for an average of 30 minutes. The writer will blend in with other customers to appear as a typical customer, including customers who use wheelchairs and other mobility devices. The writer will provide immediate feedback to SACRT regarding each ride. The new contract will be for 3 years, and the program is expected to start again in the next couple of months. The program is also ensuring that ADA regulations and California state law are followed. I jump ahead one slide. There we go. On my screen, I have the words California ADA laws, and I have some wording that says guarantee the civil rights of individuals with disabilities to receive equal access to all public transportation service. And then I'll continue with my presentation. ADA law requires that transit services and vehicles be accessible to and usable by individuals with a wide range of disabilities and those who use mobility aids. For example, bus wheelchair securement procedures require a bus operator to complete each of the following steps for a wheelchair passenger. Rise from the driver's seat, ask any customers to vacate the securement area as needed, prepare the securement area by lifting folding seats if needed, announce that they will be securing the wheelchair, and secure the wheelchair with floor tied in. The Mystery Writer will fill out a checklist for each ride they take. The checklist evaluates a variety of performance objectives, operator performance, and equipment. There are 21 different factors that will be evaluated on each ride, and here's a sampling of those. Was the operator courteous and wearing a regulation uniform? Was equipment operated safely and smoothly? Was the PA equipment utilized and audible? Did the bus operator tie down mobility devices properly on buses? Did the operator adhere to the schedule? The Mystery Writer program falls under all four agency guiding pillars: customer satisfaction, employee engagement, operational excellence, and community value. This ensures that we're providing a safe, clean, and convenient transportation. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thanks very much, Lisa. Helen,
Yes, you said that the wheelchairs are supposed to be 4-point tie down. I have never had a 4-point tie down on the bus.
If I said a 4-point tie down, I said tied down.
Yeah,
Maybe I said 4 point, but I thought I said tied down.
there's
Floor tied down.
floor tie down.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a problem getting them to use the proper place in my front of my wheelchair. And they have a habit of just hooking the tie down onto my foot plate, which is not to my satisfaction because it's not a secure place to tie down. I have tie down spots on my wheelchair that are accessible, but they choose not to use it in the front. They tie me down in the back, but they don't tie me down in the proper place in the front.
Sure, I'd like to stick to the Mystery Writer program, but I absolutely want to follow up with you. So after this meeting, we'll follow up and make sure we correct that practice.
Thank you.
Sure.
any other, okay, Margie,
Will the Mystery Writer program include user?
We hope to get there. We're going to start with big bus and we're going to start with light rail, but the goal is to get to all of our services.
And second question. Hopefully, I don't know how you recruit your mystery writers, how all that gets done, but it'd be really nice to have someone, especially on user, that has a service animal that's a mystery writer.
Sure. So one of the things that I think Priscilla emailed the group, one of the goals, and I have a little subcommittee with Priscilla and Vice President Carmen and Jamie Poole Canaveri, because we wanted to make sure that we were very inclusive. And one of the things that we wanted to do is ask for a MAC member to sit on the evaluation committee. So once we get the proposals in, that person can be a part of our team to make sure that every base is covered.
okay, great. Any other comments or questions from members present here in the room? Okay, I think Isabella on Zoom, you have a question? Comment?
Yes, thank you. Number one, I want to say thank you to the speaker for reading what was on the screen, especially being on Zoom. That was extremely helpful. And I have a question on a clarification. I have had a couple of consumers struggle with getting to a seat if they're not in a wheelchair. They may not be using a mobility aid, but maybe they have height challenges or other slight challenges. And they find that the drivers tend to take off as soon as they board the bus. And in one instance, this caused in one instance, it caused one of my consumers to stumble and fall into another passenger. This was something that I experienced many years ago. It wasn't to the full extent of falling on someone. But what is the protocol there? Because I don't know what to tell my consumers other than please ask them, to wait to sit down if you're sitting in a disabled space.
I'm going to defer to VP Carmen Alba Bus Operations to be very specific on this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Good afternoon, this is Carmen, VP of Bus Operations. Bus operators are supposed to wait till everyone is seated before they depart the bus stop. We also have audio recordings I believe it's every 15 to 20 minutes that come on that remind passengers to hold on while the bus is in motion. That answer your question?
Well, it did. So I definitely have experienced many times where the drivers don't wait until I'm seated, and I always take the first seat on the bus. And in this instance, this person had been riding this bus for quite a while. I could not find a way to address this with the on the RT website with regards to accessibility. There was just like a general number, and we struggled a lot with just finding the complaint process. I know that there's some changes coming up in that regard as well, but I'd like to request that there be some emphasis placed on both those factors with the mystery rider, making sure that all drivers wait until people are seated, especially if someone has a disability, and that there be some way to specifically provide feedback on the website for this matter.
We can issue a safety alert reminding operators of that. Some of our operators like to keep on time, and sometimes what they like to do to keep their on-time performance on is they want to pull away and they want to get passengers there on time, which doesn't really help. Their priority is safety first, service on time second. And so we will reiterate that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I get that a lot of these protocols sometimes have to be, kind of grayed out. Someone without a mobility impairment of any kind can hold on to something and they'll be fine. It just, I would have liked to have had something to tell this person. And since I've also experienced the same thing, I feel like it's pretty ubiquitous.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabel and Carmen.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
And Jeff.
I just want to applaud the idea of having some member on your group. It's how do you know what the experience of someone who's blind or actually mobility challenged? If you've never done it, you may think you understand because you've been educated, but it's different to live the experience. So I think that's a valuable asset. So thank you for
I have to
doing
give that credit to Carmen and Priscilla, but I'm gladly, we're
And I-
happy to do so, of
And I second what Pam said. Thank you very much.
course.
Okay, Jeff.
So yeah, and Carmen, maybe you can expand, but there is, of course, the complaint, not only on a line, but you can submit your complaints via an email form. You have the specifics on that, Carmen? You can.
Well, I think Jamie Poole
Okay.
kind of already is going to come up.
Okay, great, because that is really in response to what, in part, what Isabel was saying.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So I'm Jamie Buchanan, Director of Customer Satisfaction. I was just texting a couple of folks waiting my turn to come up, but Isabella, you can certainly report any concerns that you have while writing any of our services. You can send an email to our email address, which is customeradvocacy@sacrt.com. And you can also report via the app, the Alert SacRT app. And lastly, we do have an online feedback form, and that can be found under the Contact Us tab off the main website at sacrt.com.
I really appreciate that feedback, that information. The first two options that you gave were accessible. Unfortunately, the feedback form, we struggled to be able to locate it on the website. And I didn't want to share this, but I think I will after all. I was told when I spoke to the accessibility customer service department that they couldn't give me any protocol information on the drivers, number one. And then number two, the drivers did not have to wait for passengers to be seated. So I'm appreciative that there is a way, but there are some gaps there, and I'd love to provide any kind of feedback outside of the meeting if you'd like to look at this further.
Yeah, that'd be great. Appreciate you sharing, and we should be able to find out who provided that information, make sure they have it update going forward. But always share, it is important so that we can resolve it so that others don't have the same experience. Thank you so much.
I would love that very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Lisa? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on along, we now have the downtown riverfront streetcar light rail project update with Anthony Adams. We did. Well, I tell you what, I'll take up a little bit of time here. The next item is to establish a nominations committee for upcoming elections of MAC chair and vice chair. And yeah, it's been 2 years. So our last one was to elect the chair and vice chair of the standing subcommittee, which was last January. So at this point, I'm going to ask German if he would be willing to serve as chair.
Yes.
Well, good. So you need to corral, appoint, persuade 2 other members of the MAC to join you. And your committee objective is to contact each member of the MAC and find out if any of them are interested in serving either as chair or vice chair. Stipulation is that anyone up for such a nomination has to have served on the MAC for 12 continuous months. And, I hope that folks are able to report back at the October meeting, at which point the nomination will be ongoing. Then in November, we will have the election. And it's specified in the bylaws. So if you want any guidance, that's a good place to start. All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. Really appreciate it. Okay. We back? Okay. Adam, downtown riverfront streetcar light rail project update. Or Tony.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Anthony Adams. I'm the Director of Planning and Grants here at SACRT. Been here for about 9 months or so. And I am the project manager on the downtown riverfront streetcar project. And the first thing I'd like to make clear here is this is not a trolley project. We're calling it a streetcar, but really it's a light rail extension to Yolo County and into West Sacramento. So right here on the title slide, it is a picture across the Capitol Bridge with the streetcar going across it and stopping at one of the stops. We'll have next slide, please. So the slide that's up right now is the project background. And you can see on this, there are 6 different boxes starting in 2014. That's when this project originally started. It was awarded funding in 2016 for its original alignment. It was fully designed. And in 2018, we went out to bid. During those bids, the bids came back 70% above estimates. Wow. Needless to say, the engineer that did that was not asked back for the next phase. Because that was much more expensive than the funding we had on hand. It was agreed with the partner agencies, West Sacramento, City of Sacramento, SACOG, and us, to decrease the scope, decrease the size of the light rail extension, the streetcar project. The original scope was about 4 miles. The revised scope is about 1.2 miles.
Oh,
Go on the next slide, please. So what's on the screen now is a map. And on this map, there's a blue line. And this blue line is the alignment of the new streetcar line. So it would go across Capitol, make a right on right on 3rd Street, and then go on N Street up to 7th and 8th and meet up with the existing Gold Line. It'll eventually turn left and end up at Sac Valley Station. Concept here is there is no high quality transit connection across the river currently. If you are in West Sacramento, there are a few buses that go across the river, but no high speed, high quality, fast, the 10-15 minute frequency service. So this would be the first service across that river and really connect West Sacramento to the regional services that are available in Sac Valley Station in Sacramento. So we are hoping to double track along N Street. And we are doing this because we want this to be a light rail extension eventually into West Sacramento. If we do a single track on N Street, if we start to do 2 or 3 car constants when they are needed, when the demand is there, we wouldn't have the room. So we're currently working with the city on an alignment It's a little bit of a negotiation. They are wanting to put a new cycle track on N Street, which is fantastic, but there's only so much room on that road. So we are going through that, and I think we have a design that they've agreed upon, and we're hoping to get the environmental wrapped up pretty soon. Next slide. Yeah.
That's the cycle.
I did use the cycle track to come here today, though, and I do say it does make you feel a little safer.
Not for me.
Yeah, not for the drivers. I've heard that. So on the slide right now is a table. I'm not going to go on each row here, but the concept is we provided this to FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, to show what the original project was versus the revised project. And I'll say a few numbers here. So the original stations, we were going to have 21 stations. The new revised has 8 stations. The original project had 23 platforms. The revised project has 4. Okay. So what we're hoping to do is have this be a backbone, and it will be the beginning of something that can grow. Next slide. This map is not a very good map to show you. I apologize. This is probably better when it was people looking at it on a computer screen. But this is to say, this map has 2 colors on it. It has blue lines with red X's on it. And it also has a purple line. So all of the blue lines with X's on it was the original alignment. You can see it's substantially larger. On the right side, some of the alignment is kind of duplicative of our existing service. It would have provided supplemental service, but when we were looking to decrease the cost, we thought that that's something that we could hold off on and just do the main connection to Stack Valley Station. Now it is about 1/4 of the length, and it is projected to have about 1/4 of the ridership, but it does have a better boarding per service hour. So although there's fewer hours and fewer boardings, we have a higher efficiency on this route because it is a backbone and critical connection. Next slide. This is a picture that illustrates the amount of infill housing that is going to occur along the corridor of the streetcar. So on the map right now, on this picture, there's Sutter Health Park on the bottom. And some stuff has been built on the bottom since then, but it's just to illustrate that this is basically a blank slate. And we're going to have tens of thousands of homes that are slated in this area over the next 20 years. If we do not have the streetcar, that is going to be automobile centric living. And we need this streetcar to make sure that people have mobility choices and can choose to go without an auto. And also, if you look at the same picture, north of the bridge, there's also a big open area in there. That's the rail yards project. That's one of the largest infill projects in the nation. So that coupled with West Sacramento is an opportunity for 20,000 plus homes to have transit-oriented development. That's why we feel this project is so critical for the future and how we develop in Sacramento. That's all. These two, this slide has just 2 different summaries. One of the rail yards, which I just mentioned, it has that 10,000 dwelling units, also has 4 million plus square feet of commercial and some hotels as well. The Bridge District, which is the West Sacramento, is 5,200 dwelling units and 7.3 million commercial. That does not include the developments south of I-80, which is another 5,000 units. And Sacramento, West Sacramento, is hoping, after we build this streetcar line, to extend that streetcar into West Sacramento down the existing line that is parallel to the river and connect to those new houses south of the Bridge District as well. So this affordable TOD and commercial development around transit, it ensures that people do not have to get in the car to reach them. So it reduces GHG and VMT, which are state goals. Next slide. So this slide is to highlight the point that SAC-RT is transforming to low floor vehicles and also low floor stations. So on the left side, we have the S700 vehicles, and on the right side, pictures of a modified station that we recently completed. Just keep that in mind when we look at the next slide. streetcar station accessibility will be the same as SAC RT's existing stations. So the new low floor stations that we're building, that will be the specs of the streetcar stations. And I know these are two kind of confusing pictures up here, so I'm not going to try to explain them. What we're looking at the top is like an overhead layout. And I have 3 numbers highlighted in red, and those are the ramp grades. The one on the left is 5.59. The one in the center is 3.25, and the one on the right is 2.34. So we were very sensitive about the ramp slopes. We understand that 8.3 is the limit. We don't want to approach that. So the one that's on the bottom there is a elevation. If you were to cut it sideways and be able to look at it. So we will have rails that go up the ramps. And the one that we have here on the bottom is the highest slope that I could find when I looked through 600 pages of design documents. And it was 7.22. We are ensuring that we do not have slopes that are cumbersome for the folks to try to get over. Next slide. Schedule. Now I remind you that this started in 2016. May 22, we got more funding to continue the design and environment, which we're currently in right now. So the top picture here is just a illustration of the streetcar, and the bottom is the Gantt chart for the schedule. And the top one in there in orange is our environmental design and small starts application. We need to go back to the federal government and ask for some more money and also revalidation of the new alignment. So we are going through the environmental now. We're working with FTA. We have concurrent design as well with HDR, and we are hoping to turn into FTA all of these packages in 2024 and get on their small starts list. After we get on the small starts list, if we get funding, we will go into construction in 2027 and have it be completed in early 2029. You know, that seems like a long way off, but 5 years can actually go pretty quick. Next slide. Slide has, again, too many cells to explain, but I just want to highlight the 2 big numbers at the bottom. We have about 130 million committed in funding, and the project cost is about 160. So there's about $30 million shortfall still for this project that we're going to be seeking through state funds or through federal small starts programs, maybe even a partnership with the city and the I Street Bridge. So we are trying to seek this funding shortfall in years so we can begin construction in 2025 or 2026. Next slide. And with that, I will open up the floor to any questions or comments.
Okay, Dean,
Anthony, you went quickly over the alignment, and I apologize, I missed one thing. Is it in this short phase that you're doing right now, will it actually cross the river?
Oh, yes, sir. It will cross the bridge that goes up and down.
Okay, the
Capitol
Tower Bridge?
Tower Bridge, yes, sir.
On Capitol? That's okay, okay.
We will like one of only 2 in the nation that crosses the bridge that.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
the other thing that I want to find out, you mentioned the cycle track, the class 4 bicycle lanes. Trying to figure out, is this going to be at grade or raised at the same level as the sidewalk?
We, like on N Street, for instance, we are thinking we're going to put the stations on the sidewalk. And on the sidewalk, we will have to raise up the platforms because sidewalks are generally 4 inches and the platforms will be 8. So there will be a little bit of grade in between our stations and the sidewalk platform.
Well, what I apologize, it wasn't clear. The cycle track,
Yes, sir.
is it going to be at
Oh.
street level or at the same side?
It's street level is what I think the preliminary design is. I don't know.
That's a plus. And so where the stations are, pardon me, the stations, the platforms will actually be on the public side, existing public sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will not have to worry about crossing a cycle track to get to a boarding platform to get onto the trains. So that's a real plus there. So I guess what I don't understand is that as it's going to be two-way track, double track, and you're going to have a single cycle track on each side of the cycle of the street.
No, sir. I think the proposal at the moment, it hasn't been settled. But the proposal is to have a cycle track on the north side of N Street. And then we would have, it would be separated. I have to think exactly how this is. We wanted to have the cycle track separated from traffic by the streetcar. And then we would bring the streetcar in for one block while we brought in the station.
So it'll be a class 2 then.
The class 2, it would be a class 4, but it would like switch back over on that one block.
To a class 2.
Yeah.
So it's shared. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that addresses a lot of concerns. Thank you very much.
Pam?
Well, when you started out telling us how much you had to cut the project, and I'm thinking, okay, this sounds like the state high rail project going to Bakersfield. And but then when you showed the slides, and I'm sorry, some people couldn't see the scope of what that showed with a massive amount of new travelers that will be in there. And yes, I'm getting it why even a much smaller project has to be started. Even if that's as far as it goes, it will make a dent.
And something I kind of undersold this, but it stops at Sutter Health Park. And at Sutter Health Park, there's an existing Union Pacific line that goes along the river. And right now, West Sacramento is doing a feasibility study to extend light rail down that path. And it would be either bus rapid transit or light rail. They're doing the feasibility study now. But this really is meant to be the first shot across the bow, as it were, into the county. And I think you highlighted it. It might not be the biggest rider generation as soon as it's built, but it is key 10, 20, 30 years now to make sure that this is a sustainable area and it isn't one that's congested with cars. We're going to have 30,000 people now. And if they don't have a high quality transit connection, they're going to get in a car.
And I think we all can appreciate that once something is in place, people become accustomed to that. And as the situation gets more pressing, they start to press for more. So yeah, having it at least it's a foot in the door. Yeah. Thank you. That was a good illustration.
Any other comments from that member here? Dean? So,
Just from a historical perspective, we originally, maybe about 15 years ago or so, or longer, we were told that there actually was going to be a different type of vehicle than the light rail vehicles. And that was what was referred to as trolley and streetcar. It sounds like that was abandoned and to use the light rail low floor vehicles, which I think is an excellent suggestion. I think it would be, and I don't know what control RT has over it, but I think just eliminating the references to streetcar or trolley and just refer to as light rail, I think it'd make it a lot clearer to people than having the thing, because when I'm from San Francisco, I'm second generation, and I remember streetcars, and they still, now they have evolved to be something like a light rail vehicle, but there's still differences, and I think that will just help eliminate it. Just eliminate trolley and streetcar and just say light rail extension.
And Mr. Lozano, it's West Sacramento is beating that drum. And I think I need to bring it above me. I'm just a guy who does stuff.
Sure.
Stuff what my bosses tell me, but I think you're right. And it is confusing to people. So let's I think whenever we apply for more funding, maybe that's the time to switch that name and have
Yeah.
West Sacramento Light Rail Extension.
Okay, any other comments or questions from members here? Helen?
How far will the light rail extension go into West Sac?
It's just to Sutter Health Park.
So you wouldn't be able to get to the ballpark.
Yeah, it is a ballpark.
That's it.
Ballpark?
Yeah. And something also I did not say, which I think is rather critical here, is West Sacramento has one of the most successful microtransit services in the nation. And, you know, if you get dropped off at Sutter Health Park and where do I go? They have accessible microtransit. And Smart Ride, I don't know if you know, is one of the largest microtransit in the nation as well. So right next to each other, we have amazing microtransit services that are first, last mile connections. So it might end at Sutter Health Park, it might end at Sac Valley Station, but there are infinite number of connections that you can make from there with the services you have.
Thank you very much.
Anyone, okay, Isabella?
Hi, thank you. Number one, I am very excited regardless of what you call it. It does help to have an appropriate name, especially if you can't see. If you call something a trolley, you're going to expect bells. And you're going to expect it to be a single car, not something that's going to have multiple cars. So that would be helpful. So very excited for all the opportunities that it's going to be for employment, all the opportunities that are going to be increased for leisure and community-based services provision. All of these are going to be very positively affected. So I'm happy and excited to be reporting that back to my agency. My question is, I'm not sure if you're in this phase of planning yet, the hours of service and the frequency.
Yes. Actually, I was on one of the slides. The frequency 15 and then 20 minutes, I
It was
think.
about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was 15-minute peak and then 20-minute off peak.
Yeah.
And the hours of service should be the same as our normal light rail service.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members of the MAC? Okay, Helen, sorry.
Will the service be rendered by RT? Or is that going to be another entity?
So this was, recently the project got transferred from SACOG. They were the project sponsor and it got transferred to SAC-RT for that specific reason. Because we are going to be the operators and said, if you're going to have an operation, then you build it.
And I would like to know how they're going to fill the positions. Because when they extended to Elk Grove and Folsom, they left a lot of holes. Because we didn't have enough people to cover all the buses and all the light rail and all that kind of stuff. And I'd like to make sure that they have what they already have up and running to their needs, and then add the extension so that they will have enough people to move everybody in a reasonable amount of time.
Yes, ma'am, we'll take that to heart. It is something that we've been working on and improving on. I think when we took Elk Grove over, that was the worst time to hire operators. It is improving now. And we do have a lot of lead time, so we're hoping to be able to have fully staffed by that time.
Thank you.
Gene?
I'm hoping this will be appropriate. And let me get back. I'd like to make a motion in form of a recommendation to the designers and that when you're still determining whether these class 4 bicycle lanes will be at street level or whether they're going to be raised to sidewalk level. And that has a problem being raised at the same level, and how do you separate them? I would like to see if we can make a recommendation I would like to move that the MAC recommends to RT and the appropriate parties that our preference is that you go with cycle tracks that are at street level rather than at sidewalk level for access and safety reasons.
I'll second that. Mark.
Mr. President, can I propose an friendly amendment that I think is friendly?
Yes, Jeff, it's open for discussion. Now, we had a motion and a second. So go ahead.
Gene, would you accept an amendment to also include in that recommendation that it be a number 2 bike lane during the block where the station is going to be?
Well, absolutely. A class 2 bicycle lane shared where that one block where the platforms will be. Yes. Friendly amendment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion on the motion on the table? Okay, it has been clarified with Jeff and Jean. So any further discussion? All right, all the MAC members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion is carried. Thanks for that, Jean.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for considering our recommendation.
All right, any other discussion on this? Okay, from the public, Jeff. Garcia.
The previous project came up, and because I've just seen another Connect card destroyed, is the fare boxes going to be in the vehicles, and is Wi-Fi the 2 or 3, should we say, going to be Wi-Fi compatible?
This is outside of my wheelhouse.
Please make that
know.
recommendation.
I will.
Suggestion.
You want it to be outside of the?
I want Wi-Fi to be
Yeah.
on the cars,
Got that.
and I want the fare boxes to be inside
The
cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, any other comments or?
If you're okay, Charles, I can provide a quick answer.
Oh,
on
sure.
that.
Thanks.
Sure. So as we've talked about before, until we have a successor system for the Connect card system itself, the tap devices will remain on the stations. When we replace the Connect card system altogether, tap devices will be inside vehicles.
All right, there you go, Jeff. Thank you. Okay, well, Anthony, thank you for a great presentation, and I've been following this, and you know, when it first came up, this trolleys, I was still thinking that there would be horses and everything. So I'm glad that it has addressed those.
Zero emission even. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Now then, let's see, any announcements or council members' requests for information? Gene.
I've sent this to just a limited number of people, but a suggestion for consideration is at a future MAC meeting or an AI committee meeting that we revisit the issue of pedestrian crossing gates at rail crossings that are shared with light rail. For the safety there for people that need to make a crossing tracks. We've had presentations talking about the designs of those. We had a number of years ago, we actually had where a pedestrian who was blind heard the sound of the vehicles coming, and the crossing arm came down onto his head. And fortunately was not seriously injured, had a slight concussion. And then we heard about what RT was getting complaints about the level of the ambient noise from the warning devices, the auditory components, and RT was taking some measures to address that would meet the needs and the law, so forth on that. And it's maybe, and Pam, you could help me. I think it's been at least 17 plus years since we really had a presentation on that. And I think with hearing about something more of the expansions. And that some areas are gonna be crossings with UP, well, shared crossings here with the UP, that we should get an update on what is being done and how, when people do have concerns about crossings that might exist, how they can request that it be investigated for the appropriateness of putting actual pedestrian crossing gates. And those will be pedestrian crossing gates are in right now in the public right of way guidelines, which is guidelines, I stress, but will be later this year going through the regulatory process, the U.S. Department of Justice and Transportation for inclusion. So there will be some references to that and in relationship to detectable warnings. So I'm asking that we could have a future presentation on that. Thank you.
Pam? You're going to say something? Oh, okay. Oh, Jean, is that something that at this point would be most appropriate to flesh out a little bit in the A&I committee?
I think so. If we can get somebody come in there, let's find out about that and find out too, when there's requests from the community for addressing crossings, who did they send those to? Requests for such crossing pedestrian gates.
All right. Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Anything? Oh, sorry, Helen.
Yes, I'd like a hard copy of the presentation about the streetcar.
Light rails extension.
About you mean the trolley?
The horse-drawn trolleys.
Yeah. Rick,
By any means.
you have anything you want to say?
Yes, I do. I just want to introduce you to a new member, but really not a new member to our SAC RT Go team. Sean Reynolds has been promoted from a position within as a reservationist to our program analyst and has been in that position most of August. And she also comes from Paratransit Inc. So I'll let her kind of give you guys introduce herself to you and give a little bit of background of herself.
Oh, great. Sean.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sean. A lot of you I spoke to when I was dispatcher over at Paratransit. I started over there in 2017. I made the transition over here in 2020 as part of the reservation team. I've talked to many of you, booking your rides, letting you know where your buses are, those sort of things. I started last month as the program analyst, and I look forward to seeing what I can do to improve the program.
Well, great. You bring some great experience, some street level experience, so to speak, to your new job. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, but a big loss for us.
Well, yeah. Maybe you can get a biologist and just phone her. Okay, thanks for.
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay, any other business? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, anybody disagree with that? Okay, we are adjourned.
Stay.
Okay.
Hey, Priscilla. You, let me get this.